What's up, guys? It's John Acquaviva, and today we're going to be talking about CNN, because when even CNN has to apparently start sounding the alarm bells that maybe Joe Biden isn't in as strong a position as everyone wants to make him out to be, by showing some of the most recent polls that actually put him in a virtual tie with Donald Trump, even after the 4 indictments, even after the countless charges that Donald Trump is currently facing in New York, in Florida, in Washington, in Georgia. It still hasn't slowed him down one bit in the polls. And if even CNN is saying stuff like this, you have to start wondering why. So first, let's check out what CNN has been saying live on some of their shows.
Just lead for Joe Biden is just 3 points within the margin of error. No clear leader. Look at these. 1 point, 1 point. If you go back at where we were at this point 4 years ago, Joe Biden's lead was high single digits to low double digits. This is significantly closer than where we were 4 years ago. So this idea that Donald Trump can't win the general election, I want you to lose that idea. This race is very, very close, and Donald Trump is polling better right now than basically at any point during the entire 2020 cycle.
After 4 indictments.
After 4 indictments. It just doesn't really seem.
So the first thing that I'd have to ask is, why exactly would CNN be saying that Donald Trump is in a better position currently, at least in the polls, than at any point of the 2020 election? Now, there's a few reasons why this could be. One of them could be just mainstream media trying to send a message to the Democrat establishment to let them know, hey, listen, Joe Biden isn't actually a good option. Maybe you should think about supporting someone else, even if Joe Biden decides that he wants to run again. Or it could be the other way around, which is what Joe Rogan seems to think. So here's Joe Rogan a few days ago on his podcast saying this.
I had to guess, I would say that all this stuff that's coming out slowly but surely about Biden is on purpose, and they want to get rid of him. I think he wants to run again, and I don't think the Democrats think that he can win. I think they're right, and I think they're going to slowly but surely expose more of these very clear pieces of evidence of corruption.
Yeah.
The $20 million is the fact that this isn't all over the New York Times and the Washington Post and mainstream news, that they're not blaring it from the rooftops, because they would be if it was Trump.
So now, obviously, for this to be the case, you would then have to assume that some of the people within the Republican establishment, obviously some of the rhinos, would have to be working with the Democrats, because at the end of the day, part of the information that we've gathered over the past few months, especially what relates to the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden business affairs, have come from, for example, the Oversight Committee and the Republican bench that have been investigating it. However, keeping in mind that we did learn recently through the New York Times that apparently the Department of Justice had planned to let Hunter Biden off the hook without charges up until the 2 whistleblowers came forward to expose what was apparently political interference in the investigation. Remember, the 5-year-long investigation into Hunter Biden's affairs, which the conclusion of it was the equivalent of getting a speeding ticket, right? A couple of charges for taxes, and then one for an illegal gun. And then obviously we saw that a sweetheart deal fall apart for Hunter Biden when he was meant to plead guilty for these charges, and then he ended up pleading innocent a few weeks back. However, the New York Times reported that not only did the whistleblowers stop the cover-up, but also that Hunter Biden's lawyers were now trying to prosecute them for speaking out against his special treatment, which would go in violation of Biden's promise to protect whistleblowers. Now, on top of that, we've also seen Joe Biden be at, his typical, and not to say his worst, because we've seen Joe Biden be way worse than this, but Joe Biden is the person who still some Democrats are claiming to be not just the best person for the job of being president of the most powerful country in the world, but also the best person for the re-election campaign and to then serve another 4 years if he was hypothetically to win. However, this is Joe Biden giving a speech in Maui, which, by the way, he had to take some time off from his second vacation in the last month, this time in Lake Tahoe, staying in his $18 million rented mansion. He had to take some time off to go visit Hawaii. I'm sure this is probably really inconvenient for him, which is why it's understandable that he showed up with this look on his face.
Ready? You want to grab that water for a second?
Now, honestly, first of all, you get this guy saying, "Do you want a sip of water, sir?" Because you can clearly see that he's not well put together. You can clearly see that Joe Biden isn't doing something that he should be doing. Joe Biden should right now be enjoying his last years. He should be on a rocking chair somewhere driving his Corvette. He always goes on about the Corvette, right? But he hardly ever seems to have any interest in being able to drive it again, unsupervised and somewhere that isn't a private track. However, when he's not doing things like staring blankly into a crowd, he's giving stories about how his house apparently burnt down. And this is how he manages to try and gather some connection with people in Hawaii who are still going through what has been a horrible tragedy and has cost the life of more than 100 people. So this is Joe Biden giving the same story that he's told countless times over the past 15 years about how he had a fire in his house.
Compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake that's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
Okay, now, the only problem with that story is not only has it changed, the details of it and the extent of the apparent damage have changed over the last 15 years several times, but on top of that, according to the AP, in 2004, a report that was archived by LexisNexis said that the lightning struck the Biden's home and started a small fire that was contained to the kitchen. The report said firefighters got to the blaze under control in 20 minutes, and they were able to keep the flames from spreading beyond the kitchen. So, using a story about how you had a small fire that was contained to your kitchen isn't exactly the best way to try and connect with people who have literally not just lost their homes, but have lost family members, people close to them. So that is once again Joe Biden doing what he did. Also, when he was talking about the Gold Star families, when he was talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, on top of that, you had Joe Biden looking quite jet-lagged after his trip at the ceremony, which was honoring the victims of this fire.
We are a community that relies on family, on ohana, whether by blood.
Well, listen, at least he manages to nod his head, right? At least you have to give him that. At least he manages to nod his head. So Joe Biden was in one of those states where you're about 75% asleep, but you're still cognitive enough to be able to realize, okay, I'm supposed to nod, I'm supposed to say yes. So this is one of those scenarios where you're in bed next to your girlfriend, next to your wife, and she's telling you a story and you're falling asleep, but you want to make it seem like you're paying attention. So you're like, oh yeah, I'm just resting my ass. Yeah, honey, of course. And obviously, it all changes when you start snoring, and then you just can't get past the claims of you fell asleep that you're gonna have to deal with. But yes, so apparently, Joe Biden is still the strongest option to go in front of Trump in the 2024 elections. Now, we've got also another clip from CNN where they talk about the prospects of a Biden versus Trump face-off for 2024, and this is what they had to say about it.
Not really, no. It's like deja vu all over again. I feel like Yogi Berra, right? I mean, we've now had 4 indictments. You look at the polling amongst the GOP base. Do they think Trump should have been indicted? Look at the consistency here. 14% for the New York one, 50% for the efforts related to January 6th. The newest one, the Georgia election case, 15%. The classified docs handling, 16%. I guess you could say that's the highest percentage, but the fact is they're all within the margin of error of each other. The GOP base has made up its mind when it comes to these indictments. They don't believe that Trump should have been charged with a crime. The vast majority believe that. And the fact is, it just does not seem like there's any changing of their minds on any of this, no matter how many indictments there are. Yeah, you might think because the majority of Americans do believe that Trump did something illegal, at least on one of those indictments, that it might be impacting his general election standing. But the fact is, look here. This is Quinnipiac University. It was a 2-point race in February. Look where it is now. It's a 1-point race. That's well within the margin of error. But take away one thing from this, and one thing only if you take away only one thing. And that is, I think there are a lot of Democrats who simply can't believe that Donald Trump can be elected president again. The polling indicates that Trump is, in fact, in a stronger position at this point than he was during the entire 2020 campaign, according to the national polls. If we had state-level polling, I wouldn't even be surprised if Trump were ahead in the swing states.
So, once again, you mentioned indictments, which, listen, at the end of the day, you can throw as many indictments, as many accusations, as many charges as you want to Trump for whatever reason you want to. But if it's based in something that for the majority of the Republican base is going to be very close to, or either completely and transparently, a political witch hunt, as Donald Trump has said many times, just trying to overwhelm Donald Trump so he won't be able to do his campaign in the best way possible, because you're going to have to be dealing with going to Florida, to New York, to Washington, to Georgia to defend himself against what seemed to be the intentions of Jack Smith and company of bringing these trials as quickly as possible, obviously to have them before the election so that Donald Trump can't focus his time, his attention, and his resources on what he should be, which is his political campaign. So it doesn't matter. You can have 4 indictments, you can have 40, you can have 400. The base is supporting Donald Trump isn't going to change their mind about whether he should be thrown in jail and have the key thrown away, because at the end of the day, they can see past what the actual intentions of these indictments are. Anyways, just thought it was interesting that CNN is now having to apparently start sounding the alarms for the Democrats. But that's it for this video. Till the next time, guys. Peace.